What's up, everyone? So today we're going to be covering the topic of cold DMs and more specifically how and when to use automation in your DMs, whether that's on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or whatever your favorite social media channel is. Now, overall, I would say that any sort of automation when it comes to direct messaging gets a really bad rap, and for good reason. There's a lot of people out there that use it just to spam people and just really have no clue how to use automation correctly. And so what I wanted to do with this playbook is really give you guys a good overview on when the right time is to use it, when the wrong time is to use it, and really just how to actually incorporate automation in a way that actually makes your life easier without using it in a way that's really going to go against the kind of terms and conditions of these platforms that you're working on, and actually just save you some time, but not remove the human element from direct messaging. So with that said, let's dive in. So first of all, a bit of background. Direct messaging can be one of the most powerful ways for you to connect with potential clients, grow your follower base, build up groups, generate new business. And when it's done right, it can be an effective strategy to build those relationships, foster trust with people, and ultimately drive more sales. However, one of the challenges with direct messaging is that it can be really time consuming, which is where the automation step can come in. It can help you speed up the process, simplify repetitive steps, and reach more people efficiently. The catch, as you know, though, is a lot of people use automation the wrong way. They abuse it in a way that turns what could be a valuable tool into just a way to spam people with impersonal outreach and immediate pitches with no real value being created. So my goal with this guide is to really show you the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to automation, so that by the end of going through this process, you have a really clear picture of, first of all, how to build an effective cold DM strategy, and then where and how to bring in elements of automation to simplify the process for you. So let's do this in reverse order, because I'm going to start with the ugly side of cold DM strategies, which is touching a little bit on how people abuse automation and generate spam. We've all seen this, and I probably don't need to show you what not to do, but I'm always really surprised when I audit people's direct messaging strategies, how many of these same sort of spammy mistakes I am seeing. And so by covering it up front, I'm hoping to help you avoid those same sort of mistakes. So first of all, let's talk about what not to do. What we don't want to do is jump immediately into a sales pitch, sending a hard pitch right out the gate. I see so much of this, it's insane. No personalization whatsoever, just using generic templates with no effort to tailor the message to the person you're actually trying to talk to. And ultimately, these spammers just play a numbers game, right? They rely solely on volume, hoping that if they send the message out to enough people, some sorry person at the other end there is going to sit there and fall for the pitch. And what I wanted to do is show you a couple of examples of exactly what this looks like. I recently joined a Go High Level group, and literally within seconds, I had over 40 messages from different people, clearly using automation to try and target new members of the group. So I had James here who told me I was very cute, which was very kind of him, but wasn't particularly helpful. And then I had dozens of other people that all immediately told me about their amazing skills with Go High Level. I'll show you some examples here. Let me zoom in a little bit just so you can see. This is a classic example of what not to do. These people are jumping in straight away, and you can see here they are just immediately focusing on themselves. They're focusing on what they can do. There's no focus on me, no discovery on me to even see whether I'm even interested in what they're offering, and basically just sending me this big long wall of text. So if you're doing anything like this right now, please stop immediately. This is absolutely not the way to generate business with direct messaging strategies. It creates no real connection, no value creation for the person at the other end, and there's no real interest in the person. You're completely self-centered. You're focusing on you and your goals, and this is absolutely the most ugly part of cold DMs which ultimately can damage your reputation, has a really high risk of getting yourself and your accounts banned, and in my experience has an incredibly low response rate or no response rate at all. So now let's talk about the bad side of cold DMs, which are the common challenges that people have that lead them to either trying things like automation and becoming a bit more spammy, or just giving up completely. Now, running a cold DM campaign can be daunting and it can be incredibly time consuming if you don't know what you are doing. Some of the most common questions we get are things like, how do I even start the conversation? Many people just don't know how to even open a conversation up without coming across salesy. How do I actually then keep the conversation going? It is, if you don't know how to run a proper cold DM strategy after you get through that initial introduction, I see a lot of people struggle with how to actually keep the conversation engaging, how to create meaningful dialogue. Number 3, how do I transition to booking the call or selling my product or service? Most people can't smoothly transition from an initial conversation into actually getting to the stage where it is okay to pitch yourself, your service, your product, whatever it may be. And then last but not least, how do I actually keep track of all my conversations so that I can make sure I follow up on them? The social media platforms inherently are not built really for volume. They're not really built with the idea that you should be messaging lots of people and trying to keep tabs on conversations. So without a solid CRM behind you, it can be really difficult to keep tabs on what stage everybody's at and how to actually keep those conversations moving forward. So with these being the main common challenges that we see, I'll make sure that by the end of this guide, you have a really clear understanding of how to tackle each one of these 4 pain points, and then how you can potentially bring in a bit of automation to help with some of it. The key characteristics of the bad side of cold messaging, if you want to audit your own messaging to see where you fall in. First of all, I see this all the time, lack of value. The conversation's often around what you want instead of offering any sort of value to the prospect at all. And they usually are just very robotic. They sound like forced sales pitches, and it really just sounds like you are trying to push the conversation in a direction that you want so that you can get to the pitch as quickly as possible. The other thing that is super obvious is when people are kind of making it up as they go along. It's never going to be as effective if you are just winging it and making it up as you go along. You do really need to understand, A, where you're trying to go with the conversation, who the right type of person is to drive through the conversation. And then, of course, there's going to be very different scenarios from one conversation to the next, and you need to be prepared on how to handle those and how to actually get people back on track with the conversation in an authentic way that doesn't seem pushy or robotic. So if you are doing some sort of direct message strategy at the moment and you see that people are getting aggressive, they're giving negative responses, or they're just giving you yes/no answers without really driving a conversation forward, then that's probably a good sign that you're falling into this bad category at the moment, which means that you're ultimately missing out on a ton of opportunities, because there's very, very likely that the people that you are talking to, or at least some of the people you're talking to, could have been great prospects for you, could have been great clients for you, if you knew how to effectively drive them in the right direction. So now, with the ugly and the bad behind us, let's focus on the good. Let's focus on how to build effective, value-driven, cold, direct messaging strategies that actually create value for you, create value for the prospect, and can lead to more calls, more bookings, and ultimately more clients. Let's focus on how you can create those direct messaging scripts that actually engage people and don't just spam them. And then I'll talk a little bit about how you can actually leverage automation to speed up the process without becoming a robot. Now, ultimately, if there's one thing I can leave you with in this, what I want you to remember is it's all about leading with value, actually listening and genuinely engaging with people, and then gradually guiding the prospect towards your solution if it is actually the right thing to do. So to illustrate my point, I want you to imagine every time you're going into a direct message conversation that the person that you're talking to is on an island surrounded by hungry sharks, just like in this image. There's only one small path leading away from the island, but they can't find it. You are the only person that knows where the path is and can show them how to get to it. So I want you to take a moment and think. This person is stuck on this island. They're surrounded by sharks. There's this path that only you can guide them to. What do you do? Now, your natural instinct is probably going to be to guide them to the path, right? Now, believe it or not, this is actually where you are wrong. And this is the first and most common mistake I see with cold direct messaging strategies. Let me put it to you this way. At this point, how would you even know that taking the person off the island is the right thing to do? Maybe they love the island. Maybe the sharks are their lifelong friends and they would never want to leave them. Maybe that path leads off the edge of a cliff that will send them plummeting to their death. The point I'm trying to make here is that without knowing more about the person, about what motivates them, about their current situation, how could you possibly know whether what your gut feel or initial reaction is actually the right thing to do or offer them? So this is where the importance of a proper direct messaging strategy and a really good discovery process comes in play. Now, there are loads of different acronyms, different systems, different processes out there. Lots of different people teach lots of different ways. But the one that I like to use specifically is one that we created, which we call CONVERTI. Basically stands for connect, observe, value, engage, review, talk, and invite. It gives you the exact process that you need to follow to get somebody from an initial connection all the way through to inviting them to a call and ultimately getting them booked, once again, if that is the right thing to do. Now, in this guide, I have broken it all out with examples. I'm going to take you through those now, but you can use this to reference back to any time. And what I would encourage you to do is look at any existing direct messaging process that you might have now and try and put it into the CONVERTI framework to see where you might have gaps in your current process. So step one is simply to connect. It's to open the conversation in the simplest, easiest, most friendly way you can without creating any pressure on you or them. Immediately, people start saying things like, this is your icebreaker, but it's not. Because when people talk about an icebreaker, they talk about some slick opening line that is just going to immediately encourage the person to connect and engage with you. And realistically, like, that's not how we operate, right? Most of the time, if you're out in public, if you're out with friends, you're not going to start with some slick line, right? You're going to just start with a friendly hello. So why do anything different when it comes to cold DMs? During the connection phase, I often find less is more. On LinkedIn, I don't even send a connection note at all. I get a much higher acceptance rate of my connections if I don't put in a connection note, and I've split test this over literally thousands of messages. Whereas on Facebook, once again, I don't send the connection note until after a friend request has been accepted, and I'll walk you through how we do that later on. So with your connection, keep it super simple. It can be as simple as hi, hello, add a little bit of personalization with the person's name, and then if you want, you can talk a little bit about why you wanted to connect if there was something that jumped out to you on their profile in the first place. The next thing I like to do is our observe step, and the key objective here is to make a sincere observation or a bit of a compliment about something you notice on the person's profile, showing that you've actually taken time to learn about them, and tying this back into the concept. Different people describe it differently. Some people call it multi-threading, some people call it layering. I know there's a whole lot of different ways of naming that style of conversation out there. But to me, it's all about engaging with them, as I say, observing their profile and adding something into the conversation that gives them a couple of different points that they could pick up on to continue the conversation in a bit of a direction that actually interests them. So in my example, we're going back to our buddy who is stuck on the island full of sharks. I noticed that you live on a beautiful island. I've always wanted an island getaway, but just haven't had the chance since the kids arrived. So in here, the two layers of branching that I've provided, I have mentioned that I saw that they're on a beautiful island, and I've given the topic of island getaway and since the kids arrived as two different branches that they could pick up on in order to continue the conversation. They might come back and say something about the fact that, yeah, I haven't been able to get away as much since I had kids. Or, I love island getaways. That's why I moved to an island. But, that opens up the conversation for you to then dig into a little bit deeper about, where were you before you moved onto the island? Or, oh, that's great. How old are your kids? Just try and find some common ground to show that this is a genuine conversation and you're actually interested in them, not just sending robotic scripts one after the other. From there, the thing to understand is that at this stage, people still have their guard up. You have reached out to them out of the blue. They have no idea who you are or why you're trying to connect. And at the moment, in the back of their mind, their thought is that the only reason you are trying to connect is most likely to sell them, to scam them, or to try and waste their time one way or another. And this is where leading with value is incredibly powerful for multiple reasons. And I'll take you through each of those as we go through. So in my example, I'm going to say something like to my friend over on his island surrounded by sharks, I've got a free guide on 101 ways to get off an island surrounded by sharks that might be helpful for you. Would you be interested in checking it out? Now, there's a few things I want to call out in this example. First of all, why do I say I've got a free guide on 101 ways to get off an island? Because I want to put something out there that may be valuable to them and see how they react. Now, if this person absolutely loves being on their island and loves being surrounded by all those sharks, then what are they going to do? They're going to respond and say that they're not interested, or they might give you a little bit of insight into, actually, I love being on this island and sharks are my absolute favorite animal. I couldn't be in a happier place in my life right now. Now, obviously, I'm using a funny example going back to this shark analogy, but if you think of that in context of what you do, if you offer a piece of value, for example, around Facebook advertising or around personal fitness or around how to handle your accounts, if that person is in a good space with your particular topic, then yes, you're going to get a response that indicates that they're not that interested in what it is you're offering. And the thing I want you to take away from this is that that is actually totally fine. That means that your offer of value has done its job. It has shown that the person is not interested in what it is that you have for whatever reason. And at that point, you can choose to either try and dig a little bit deeper to find out why, or you can choose to move on to the next person. I also very purposefully say might be helpful because I don't want to make any assumptions about their current situation. And I specifically ask if they would be interested in checking it out to try and get a bit of engagement back from them. Once again, if they are not interested, then they're going to more than often give me a reason why they're not interested. And if they are interested, then that to me is a really good indicator that, hey, okay, this person might want to actually get off this island and might want to get away from all of these sharks. The next step in our process is the engagement stage. If they actually agree, we're going to deliver the piece of value content that we promised, and we're going to make sure that it's actually genuinely useful. Don't give them some guide that's just full of amazing testimonials about you that actually creates no value for them. Don't just give them something that has like an effective paywall in it. By that I mean don't give them something that only gives them like 80% of what they need and then say pay me money to get the other 20%. Make sure you actually give them something that's genuinely valuable and can genuinely help them in their journey towards whatever your particular topic is. Once again, going back to what I said earlier, the thing I want you to remember here is that these people still have no clue who you are most of the time, right? Maybe by this point they've gone and looked at your profile a little bit. Maybe they've done a little bit of homework on who you are. But the large majority of people will be taking your conversation at face value and won't know anything more about you at this point in time. And so this is your opportunity to really give them a piece of value and start building your social proof with them so that they start seeing you as an expert in your industry rather than just some person that wants to spam them. So the engage stage is really simple. You're just going to say something as straightforward as, here's the guide I mentioned, give them the link, and then just follow up with something like, I hope it provides some great insights for you. Next, we move on to the review stage. And the importance of the review stage is this is your opportunity to leverage the piece of free value that you've just provided to actually open up the conversation more. A lot of the time, people are going to maybe briefly open your guide, have a quick look at it. They might not open it at all, but that doesn't mean we can't still leverage it to continue the conversation. One of the best things I've seen work here is giving people an opportunity to give you some insight into what is going on in their life by referencing back to the piece of free content you've just given them or the free value you've just given them. So using my shark example again, have you been considering leaving the island? I may have a few extra pointers on how best to use my guide to do so, for example. Now, once again, this is kind of a fun example, but if I try and relate that back to the real world, have you considered running Facebook ads? I might have a few pointers on how best to use my guide. Eating healthier, something that you are focused on at the moment, I might have a few pointers on how best to use this guide. You can see how you can take the same structure and apply it to different industries and different offers in order to give you an opportunity to leverage that piece of value you've just provided to dig a little bit deeper into their situation. And this leads us into the bulk of where the magic happens, the talking stage. The objective here is to genuinely engage with people in a problem awareness questioning process. So at this stage, what we want to do now is we want to start uncovering if we can genuinely help the person or not. This is where we're going to explore their pain points, their current challenges, what they've tried that worked, what they tried that didn't, and really try and get to the bottom of whether or not there is something there that we can do for them. So I'm going to use my example once again, just to kind of illustrate how we would approach this. So John, I'm just curious, how have you been finding being surrounded by sharks? Is that something you've been dealing with for a while? And so you're going to get a response there, something to the effect of, this has been a really big problem for me for a long time. Or no, I actually just moved here. I'm still getting used to it. I don't really know what's going on. That's going to immediately give you some insight into, is this topic a big problem for them? Is it a little problem? Is it something they've not even considered? Allow us to transition that into the rest of the conversation. Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, what have you tried to actually get off this island? Have you tried building a boat or yelling for help? Now, there's a couple of key things I want you to notice in the way I've structured this sentence. Now, first of all, it's important for us to understand what they have tried before, because there's no point in us diving into a pitch about how we're amazing at Facebook ads if they've tried 10 different Facebook ads gurus and they're just completely disillusioned with Facebook ads, right? So it's really important that we try and get to the bottom of what their current situation is and what they have tried. And there's something really subtle in this sentence, but it's really important in order to help keep driving conversations in a direction that can help you uncover these challenges. And what that is once again, giving them two different branches to latch onto. So instead of just saying, what have you tried so far, and leaving the door completely open for them, I've specifically said here, have you tried building a boat or yelling for help? So once again, I've given them two branches that they can latch onto to help continue driving the conversation forward. They might say, yeah, I tried doing this and this is what happened and this is what worked, this is what didn't. Or they might say, no, I didn't actually try either of those two things. This is what I did instead. Once again, all great answers that help us to know how to continue moving the conversation forward without just leaving it completely open-ended for them to say whatever they want and go off on a tangent. We then want to uncover a little bit more about what they tried, why it worked or why it didn't work. And so in my example here, okay, so when you built the boat, why do you think it didn't help you get off the island? So once again, putting that in real world context, okay, so like when you tried your SEO strategy, why didn't they get you the kind of results that you were hoping for? So last time you tried a healthy eating plan, what was it that made you, feel like it didn't generate the results you were hoping for? You can see how we can take the same structure and once again apply it to your specific niche to start uncovering a little bit more about what they have done in the past and what the results were, to start seeing if there is a way for us to help them and offer them something different to what they've seen before. Now, the last piece of this particular process is starting to transition into the invite stage. And to do that, we need to, once again, make an offer to see if they're even open to help. This is a stage I see a lot of people get wrong because once again, they jump straight into the pitch instead of warming people up and seeing whether they're even open to being helped in the first place. It really is as simple as just repeating back to them what the challenge is that, from your understanding that they've described to you, what the result is that you think they're wanting to get, or at least an indication of the types of results that they want to get, and then transitioning that into a simple question asking if they are open to being helped with their situation. So, okay, sounds like using a boat or just waiting around for help isn't getting you the results that you want. Is there anything else you've tried or been looking into? So now we've given them the opportunity to tell us a little bit more about maybe what other directions they want to go in, or they might just say at that point that they haven't and that they're completely sick of the whole process, which opens the door for us to the next step. Now moving into the invite stage, we've identified that we can help them. We've identified what they've tried in the past and what has worked and what hasn't, so that we have a clear picture on whether our solution is right for them or not. And so now we can naturally transition into our offer and our offer to help them. So actually helping people get off shark-infested islands is exactly what we do here at Right Tech. Would you like some help with that at all? It's as simple as that. We can state that we understand their pain, we understand what they're trying to achieve, and we can now make an offer to help. At this point, they're either going to say, yes, they want help, and you can then transition into booking a call, or they're going to start throwing up objections. I'm not going to cover objection handling here. I've got a few other videos about that, or if you need a hand with that, reach out to me. We can talk through it. But at this stage, you've now followed a good, engaging process to get the person to open up with you, and you're in the best position you can be in to move the conversation forward to a call booking, a sale, whatever that may be. So the key principles of the good side of cold DM strategies: lead with value, genuinely connect, and actually try and find out whether there is a problem you can solve instead of just trying to push your solution down their throat. And to go back to those questions that I promised you I would answer, how do I even start the conversation? Just keep it simple, less is more, and just connect as if you were meeting the person for the first time and saying hello. How do you actually keep the conversation going? Engage, open-ended questions, branching, and going back, doing a bit of homework on them and making comments in a way that actually give them the opportunity to have a conversation with you rather than an interrogation. You can then transition to book calls or selling your service by first uncovering whether there's even a problem to solve, and then using skilled questioning to qualify that person's pain and offer to show them that they can move away from that pain and that you have the ability to show them how to do that. Last but not least, how do we then keep track of all these conversations and make sure to follow up correctly? Follow-ups are a great opportunity to provide more value if the person is not ready to move then and there. And the mistake I see all the time is that a lot of people don't have good tracking in place. So if the person is not ready immediately to make a decision, then they just disappear and fall off the radar, never to be contacted again. Some of the biggest deals we have closed at RightTech come from people that we started engaging with a year ago, 18 months ago, 6 months ago, and we've just kept in constant contact and constant value creation with them so that when the time does come that they're ready to do something, we're the first person that they think of. Now, last but not least, I said I would touch on how you can effectively use automation to help with this strategy without becoming one of these robotic spammers out there like my example right at the start of this video. There are 3 major problems that we see with every cold DM strategy that we audit. Number 1 is the time that it takes. Number 2, they're not scalable. And number 3, their processes are inconsistent because it's very difficult to follow exactly what to do in each different situation. So first of all, let's talk about the time-consuming manual outreach. This is one of the best ways that bringing in automation can help. I want you to think of automation as the tool that can get you to the person stuck on that island to start the conversation with them. Using automation to try and do the whole conversation is going to lead to that robotic style, low value, etc. But where automation can be helpful is it's not a great use of your time to sit there qualifying whether these are the right people, sending them friend requests, waiting to see if they accept your friend request, trying to keep tab on when they accepted your friend request so you know to send them a message to follow up. And that's where automation can be really powerful. Those tasks can easily take 2 to 3 hours a day if you're doing them manually. But with automation, we can have software that can actually send the requests on your behalf and keep track of who is accepting those requests and then alert you to the fact that those requests have been accepted so that you can start engaging with people. As a quick example, within our intent magnet system, we have steps to send friend requests on our behalf. We have steps to check to see if those friend requests have been accepted. And then if they have, send an initial opening hello message to get some initial engagement back. As soon as those people engage back with us, then we get alerted so that we know a human can step in and take the conversation further. Next, let's talk scaling. Within scaling, there's 2 big challenges that we see when trying to scale a DM strategy. One, trying to drive conversations forward is really difficult when you have to either manually type messages or constantly copy and paste them from script sheets. There are ways of using shortcodes on your phone, but that can also be very time consuming and very difficult to keep tabs on. And number 2, once you try and scale by adding more team members, this can get really difficult as well because you now have scripts that you have to try and train them on. You've got to try and show them how and when to use the right scripts at the right time. And on top of that, you've got to actually show them how to do correct engagement techniques. And it's just a lot of things to try and onboard a new person into every single time. In our example, we use a Chrome extension where we can overlay pre-written scripts to different stages of the conversation. So depending on what stage the conversation is, we can have all of our scripts saved so that we have the most common questions, the most common answers to questions, links to our guides, and basically everything that we could ask for at our fingertips that is contextual to the stage of the conversation for that person. It means that when we onboard new team members, there's not a very big learning curve because all they need to learn is the correct and appropriate way to move people through the stages. And then within that stage, they're given all of the scripts that they need specifically for that stage to move it forward to the next. And that's all they need to focus on at each point is, what do I need to do at this stage to move the conversation forward to the next stage of the CONVERTI process, for example. Lucky last, as I said before, so many opportunities are lost because it's incredibly difficult to continuously follow up on these messages and keep tabs on them, especially when we're talking keeping tabs on conversations you had 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 30 days ago, whatever it may be. And this is where automation can be incredibly helpful as well. We want to automate the process of bringing these people into our CRM system and keep tabs on what stage of the conversation they're at, so that if we do need to put somebody in a 30-day, a 60-day, or a 90-day follow-up, A, it's really simple to do, and B, when that 30 days or 60 days or 90 days rolls around, it's really easy to know who they are, why we were contacting them, why we put a delay on them for a little while, and what to offer them in order to re-engage them back into the conversation. Trying to do this through the native messenger applications is almost impossible. If you figured out a way to do that, then you'll have to show me sometime. But from my experience, unless you want to have a ton of Google Sheets trying to keep tabs of everything, then automating the process back into a CRM is absolutely the right way to go here. And in our example here, you can see we not only track the person that we're talking to be able to go back through the history of what was said, what we were talking with them about, but we also have the ability to schedule when it's time to follow up with that person and what to actually do when it's time to do that follow-up. These reminders trigger on a daily basis and let us know that it's time to move somebody back into the conversation. So there you have it. That is our exact process laid out from start to finish. It's how we manage to engage in genuine conversations with people and turn those genuine conversations into multiple call bookings a week for ourselves, for our clients. And it's just all around a nicer way of doing it, right? None of us want to be spammers. None of us want to have angry messages back about the awful nature of how we outreach to those people. And so hopefully what you've seen here today is a repeatable process that you can implement into your business to actually create a cold direct messaging process that is all about genuine value giving, genuine connection, and will increase the quality of the bookings that you have at the other end tenfold. I hope you found this helpful, and as always, if you have any questions, just reach out to me either in our group or through any of my social channels.